Hi, everyone. I'm Kurt Roney, the instructor for this course in international business. And I sure hope that you find it helpful in preparing for your career. That's important for one reason at least, and that is that the nature of business and commerce is becoming ever more international, not always because we want it that way, but you just have to look at the news to understand that businesses of all types are being affected by what's going on, for instance, in Afghanistan or on our southern border, or in our relationships with China or Russia, or countries that are friendly, including those in Europe. So if we don't understand the conditions that American companies have to contend with, and how to deal with those conditions, then the chances are that there's somebody else in your corporation that's going to be making the big decisions, not you, unless you've had a course like this one. So it is important. As I imagine you've already noticed, I've sent you a bulletin to let you know that we will not be meeting on campus. Instead, we will be meeting by Zoom, which is a very good system. I've used it many times and find it quite satisfactory. The problem is that you and I cannot interact individually. We'll be meeting via Zoom, frankly, because I have an illness, not COVID. It's not the coronavirus, but in my condition, if I were to come to campus and get hit by this new Delta virus or Delta variant, it would be very hard for me to handle it. In addition to which, I've got some other issues that the doctors are taking care of. So I have no choice. I've got to offer this course to you on Zoom. And so sometime next week, let's see, the first time that we will meet is Friday, right? The course meets on Mondays and Fridays, but the semester actually gets started on Tuesday. So there can't be a class on Monday. I think arranging courses so that they meet on Monday and Friday at exact opposite ends of the week is sort of goofy, but I'm only a professor. I'm not one of those bureaucrats that makes all these brilliant decisions. So what I'd like to do here is just give you an orientation of what to expect in the course using a set of PowerPoint slides that you will find in the first week of your Moodle shell. And I urge you to use that Moodle shell often by referring to it. That's because in the times that exist with the coronavirus and the Delta variant and all the other swirling issues that are going on today, we may need to change part of the course or schedule as we go along. So at this point, I'm going to open up those PowerPoints. I'll simply make one last remark, and that is that since we can't meet in person in the classroom or on campus, I invite you to contact me. Please feel free to contact me. Forget about office hours anytime at all by email. And if appropriate or necessary, we'll set up a little Zoom meeting and get to know each other better. But I certainly am available to you. And if and when you need help, I'm here. Okay, let's see if we can't bring up the PowerPoints here and make short work of this if we can. For those of you who know me, I never make short work of much of anything. Okay, so these are the PowerPoints that you will find in the first week of your Moodle shell. And you can see on these first two slides that the course is divided into 4 basic parts: the nature of international business, the international business environment. And today, of course, the international business environment is much different from when this book was published. So, for instance, there was no COVID then. There was no Afghanistan war. The fragility of the United States southern border was not as appreciated back then. So we'll have to do some updating here. Anyway, the third part of the course isn't as long, but it's important, and that is how is it that firms can choose to allocate their resources in response to those environmental conditions. That's what strategy is about. And incidentally, my PhD is in strategy and strategic management. So you can just imagine when we get to chapter 11, I'll probably have a few extra things to say. But this chapter 11 is very deficient. It does not do a good job, and it moves from strategy models to organizational models in the same chapter. So I'll probably provide you with, I definitely will provide you with some supplemental international strategy models. And by models, of course, we mean the arrangement of resources to the environment, methods and procedures that fit certain circumstances so that you as a manager and your firm can be most successful competitively and hopefully enjoy a competitive advantage. But I think chapter 12 is so good that it almost offsets chapter 11. Chapter 12 includes methods and procedures for identifying opportunities out there in the economies, markets, and industries where the firm operates, and then do something about them. And then the fourth part of the course is about implementing strategy or otherwise. And you can see all the various topics there. And it concludes with marketing and HR. But these are all the functions that you would expect to find in just about any corporation, such as exporting, foreign direct investment, collaboration, franchising, accounting, and financial. The last three definitely are very traditional topics that you would find in any management course. These three simply are focused more on the international business. I'll move back up here for a minute, and of course you can take a quick look at the various chapters in these two sections. But we will start out in these first five talking about the impacts of COVID on international trade. At some point, we'll have talked enough about that topic that you'll probably have an essay quiz It'll simply be a short written assignment where I ask you to address some impact of COVID on a particular company or industry or market. You probably have some pretty good ideas about that right now if you're employed, or if your parents are employed. There are many cases or small cases scattered throughout the chapters. And these are three companies that are discussed in these chapters. And you're going to be asked to write a small essay. And I mean small, not one paragraph, but not a book, you know, maybe a couple pages. To answer questions, either that the textbook gives you about those many cases, many, M-I-N-I, many cases, or questions that I will ask you about them. By the way, the case on Airbus versus Boeing, I think you will find very interesting. The reason is that although textbooks like to talk about Airbus versus Boeing, in addition to that, I'm going to introduce you to the commercial aircraft manufacturers and air travel markets of China and Russia. So your perception of that industry is going to be a lot broader when we finish that topic than it is today. Okay, and the discussion topics in the second half of the course, you can see COVID impacts again, and also international economic and market trends. As I mentioned earlier, textbooks do a real poor job of dealing with such topics simply because the times change. They publish, and so very often the textbook publishers don't even try because they know that whatever will be published will be out of date by the time it reaches your hands. That's the textbook. You need the textbook. You must have the textbook, and you must have it when the course begins. In the very first week, there is an assignment to read the first chapter, and there is a quiz. So, you know, please get this textbook just as quickly as possible. There will be online quizzes on each chapter. As we go through this rather large book, there will be 3 tests as well as a final exam. And as I mentioned earlier, a few, not many, essays on topics. But suffice it to say, you'll stay busy. In addition, you and some other students need to form a team. Now, this is a large class. There are 28 class members right now. And so at the end of this course, when you look at the Moodle shell, you will see that at the very end of the course, there are 3 weeks left for presentations by teams. In one of those weeks, Thanksgiving occurs. So we've got 2 class meetings on each of 2 weeks and 1 class meeting on the other. That means that we can have 5 presentations. So if each of our teams had 6 people, we'd have two deficiencies. So there are going to be a couple of teams that have 5 people rather than 6. But please try to get together with your classmates. You've probably done a team project with some of them together already. And as soon as you know who your teammates are, please send me an email telling me so. Also take a look at the list of alternative companies that you will find in this PowerPoint file. Remember that this file is in week 1 of your Moodle shell. The final exam will focus primarily on principles of international business that these presentations demonstrate. Okay, so to do your team project, you need to figure out who's going to be on your team, select the corporations for study. We'll take a look at those. There's a list of 17 others. If there's another company that your team just strongly desires to study, I'll listen to it, but the company has to be publicly owned. It has to be sizable enough so that there's enough information about it. It ought to be able to demonstrate some of the principles in this course. So if you suggest an alternate, I'll have to take a look at it. I won't necessarily give you an immediate answer. Okay, so during the course, as we go through the chapters, each chapter, of course, has a topic related to international business. That is a good sequence to go through in gathering information about your target company. But the one thing you don't want to do is wait until the last days of the class. Let me just see if I can make that red. You know, I'm sure that there will be a team that does that. That team will probably not get a very good grade. It's just too difficult to put all the information in the outline that I'm going to show you together in a week. Better to form your team every once in a while, communicate as to who's going to gather which information and so forth. A good idea is to put together a 3-ring binder with the PowerPoint slides from each chapter, and then check off items that you think would fit into your presentation, and then assemble a PowerPoint presentation that takes an hour, maybe an hour and 10 minutes if you want, but roughly an hour to make during class. During those 3 days, I am going to try really hard to join you on campus in class. It's just so much better if we can do it together and interact about this hard work that you've done and the importance of what you have learned from it, so that everybody in the class can appreciate those things. If for no other reason, that will be important because the final exam is based on principles of international strategy demonstrated by those cases. Okay, here we go. I'll get back. All right. So these are 12 firms that you can select from. I recommend that you and your teammates choose at least 2, maybe 3. The reason is that if you get to me after somebody else who has the same first choice, then you'll get your second choice. And if it's even possible that another team with the first, both of your choices gets to me first, and then you're going to have to start again unless you have a third choice. So give some thought to it. A couple of quick comments. Boeing, of course, is one of those companies in the case studies. Deere and Company is an agribusiness machinery manufacturer, which also produces construction machinery, forestry machinery, ground maintenance, and even irrigation equipment. So if you happen to be either an agribusiness major, or if your family and your family firm is engaged in agriculture, that case ought to be very attractive to you. Okay, I don't want to hold you up anymore, but try to make a choice of 2 or 3 companies from this list. Okay, and as I've explained already, the benefit of the companies that I've just shown you is that they are all publicly owned and they are sizable. So you can get a great deal of information about these companies right away. You can go to their website, find the Investor Relations tab or the Contact Us tab, and in one of those 2 places, you should be able to request this information. You also, because these companies are so large, you can see this list of publications, all of which typically run articles about large corporations in important industries. So you can just bet that there are some pretty good articles about Deere, for instance, or General Motors, or Tata, and so forth. This is the outline for your term project. And as you can see, it's not trivial. Now, the percentages that you see are not the weights for your grade, but instead, that's about the amount of information and proportionate content that normally occurs. But you are quite at liberty to change those proportions. Also, there will be some items which may or may not be, available. They all should be, but an example could be the technical functions in the corporation. It may be the corporation that doesn't discuss those as much. I think you probably won't have that difficulty in these cases, but it's possible. The one that often is a problem is number 5, 3B5, corporate administrative services. Companies don't publicly discuss their IT department, their HR department, and their insurance departments and their other administrative functions, although they're very important. So as you get into the company's literature, take a look and just always be on the lookout for this stuff. If you can't find it, get in touch with me and maybe I can help. But that's number 5. Sometimes we just can't put together. Background, the business environment, what's going on outside the firm. Outside the firm, management can't control those things, can they? Can management control the economy? No. Can management control the markets that it serves? No. Can it control the industry? Well, it can influence it, but it can't control it, especially if the firm is international. So, and I suppose you could throw technology in there. can management control the evolution of new technology? So in the external environment, we talk about factors that cannot be controlled, but each of those factors influences the firm's performance potential, doesn't it? Without understanding these factors, these environmental trends and issues, it's going to be very difficult to form strategy to gain competitive advantage. So we really need to understand those things. Now down here, item 3, business functions, we can control those, right? So management's challenge is to arrange these business functions, to arrange its resources and skills and procedures to best fit what's going on in the external environment, to use its ability to control and deploy those resources to either avoid the problems or exploit the opportunities of what's going on outside. Okay, and then there are a number of issues that are requested, including a basic strategy model, and I'll be helping you with that. And finally, your view. You're not going to get this from someplace else, and if you do, make sure you understand it and see if you can provide your own point of view. But what is your view, the view of your team, regarding this firm's outlook for the next 5 years? So that's quite a menu, isn't it? And that's why you really need to get busy right away. Here's how your grade will be calculated. There are quizzes on every chapter, and the quizzes are not meant to even be part of your grade. In the theory of education, if you will, I'm sorry, the methodology of education, quizzes are meant to help you identify the portion of the material that you may not have understood. So you take a look at your quiz results, and based upon what you didn't get right, you go back to that material and acquire it. And then the test of your knowledge accumulation is in those tests and the final exam. So you can see that the tests and the final exam add up to more than 50% of your grade. That's where the action is. If you don't do too well on quizzes and you do great on tests and the exam, I will try to be mindful of that. If there's a borderline, in that case, I would lean in your favor, because quizzes really should not matter as much as they do in American education, and particularly Mount Olive. The reason we put a grade weight on quizzes is because if we don't, you won't take them. And so then their purpose can't be accomplished. But quizzes are the least important element of a course. There will be a little, as I mentioned, discussion topics, many cases within the chapters, and perhaps some supplements. And again, these will be, you'll be asked to answer short questions with relatively short answers. I always hesitate to say short answers. Every once in a while, I'll ask a question such as, what is your view of Tesla? Do you think Tesla is an advanced corporation organizationally? And some other silly thing like that. And lo and behold, I've got an answer back from a student that says, yes. You're expected to explain your answers and provide a rationale. Normally, essay type questions can be answered sometimes in one page. Normally, it takes a couple pages. On rare occasions, 3. Of course, that depends on the size of type and spacing that you use. Some students, to make their answers look good, use double spacing with huge print. And so a short answer somehow becomes a monster. Just be aware that, you know, I'm sensitive to all that. Your team presentation, as I say, I hope to make it to class, to meet you in person and to appreciate what it is that you present. But it may be that we will have to do that on Zoom as well. And as we go through the course, your team and I will have an occasional conversation about your project just to make sure it's going okay. And then, as I mentioned, the final exam, which will be based on international business principles demonstrated by those presentations. Okay, so this is the last item. Aren't you glad? But what's in your Moodle shell? And please note the little starburst. It just has impressed me greatly over the past year of how fluid things have become. Changes in Mount Olive management, the coronavirus, just you know, various requirements to meet mask requirements and so forth. So about the only thing I can do is just remind you that we live in fluid times, and the best thing to do is consult Moodle often, although whenever there is a significant change of which I am aware, I will post it in the messages portal of our Moodle shell. And then those messages will go out to you by email. Anyway, the Moodle shell, in the Moodle shell, you'll find the syllabus. You can, if you want to find out what my background is and what I've done, I've had 2 careers for, gosh, I guess about 30 years. I was in industry. I was VP of Corporate Planning and Development at Philips, and I was the first corporate planning director at Holiday Inn. And I also managed a strategic management consulting firm for, gosh, I don't know, several years. So that's my industrial background. For the last 20 years, I've been a professor. After I elected to retire in 2001. So let's see, you'll find scheduling information, the outline for the project, which you've already seen, chapter review videos and PowerPoints. And from time to time, there will be some supplemental instruction materials to deal with information and topics that the publishers and the authors did not include. And usually that information is about international economics, markets, and industries. Okay, and then of course the usual portals to submit your material. So that's it. That's the course. I think it's very important, and that's because I'm absolutely convinced that as we go down the road, the United States will change a great deal insofar as its international influence is concerned. Right after World War II, when I was just a little kid, the United States sort of dominated international commerce, and things stayed that way for a while. But over time, the US may not have gotten any worse, but other countries and companies in other countries have gotten a lot better. So proportionately, the US isn't as influential as it used to be. As you're well aware, at least I hope you are, China has become a dominant influence, or one of the dominant influences in international affairs, commercially, militarily, politically. And there have been similar evolutionary trends. So if you want to get a job in a big corporation, you can almost assume that that corporation will be doing business internationally. Otherwise, it won't be big because the big markets are not just the US, but in many cases, the biggest are in other countries. So your company is going to want to participate in those markets and industries. The purpose of this course is to get you ready for that. So with that, I'll stop talking and hope to meet you in person, if not on the Moodle shell. And sometime next week, before Friday, I will send you a Zoom link. Incidentally, between now and Friday, you have work to do. Take a look at the first week of the Moodle shell. You need to read chapter 1 and take the quiz on it. And of course, you need to get together with teammates and select the companies that you think you might want to study. So now I will say goodbye. Goodbye. So I think I'll say goodbye. Goodbye.